China may have put a hold on the listing of Masood Azhar at the UNSC, but the world is still batting for India's cause. Discussions have begun in the European Union regarding designation of the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief as a terrorist. In fact, the German embassy spokesperson confirmed to WION, saying that they are taking part in the discussions. The development comes days after France had announced that it will impose an asset freeze on Masood Azhar. Two people have died after an under-construction building in Karnataka collapsed. 15 people have also been injured, out of which 3 are critical in hospitals in the district have been placed on alert. And Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy has said that he has instructed the Chief Secretary to supervise rescue operations. He has also instructed the injured to be airlifted if required. Former Supreme Court Judge Pinaki Chandra Ghosh has become the first Lokpal of India with his appointment along with other 8 members. These appointments were recommended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led selection committee and approved by President Ramnath Kovind. A Lokpal at the centre and Lokayukts in states will probe cases of corruption, if any, against top public servants, including the Prime Minister himself and Chief Ministers. Beleaguered Indian airline Jet Airways could be up for further cost-cutting, even as the airline has grounded as many as 78 planes and has withdrawn close to 1,000 scheduled flights. Remember, the Indian government has already asked state-run banks to rescue Jet Airways before it goes bankrupt. And now Jet Airways pilots have threatened to stop flying from April 1st if salaries are not paid. They have sought assurances from Jet Airways CEO Vinay Dubey with regard to their salaries. The first funerals are taking place for victims of the New Zealand mosque shootings that left 50 people dead. Volunteers have descended on Christchurch to assist with the burial process and support victims' families. Islamic tradition calls for bodies to be buried as soon as possible, but the burials have been delayed by the scale of the identification process. Christchurch city officials issued strict guidance to the media ahead of Wednesday's funerals and requested the families to be left alone. New Zealand Police Commissioner Mike Bush has said that the police have now formally identified and released the bodies of 21 people. Bush said that the releasing of the bodies was a priority for family reasons, compassionate and cultural reasons. Islamic law says that people should be buried as soon as possible after death, preferably within 24 hours. Britain's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle signed a book of condolences at New Zealand's house after a gunman killed 50 people at 2 Christchurch mosques. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who are expecting their first child this spring, signed the book on behalf of the royal family to honour the victims of the attack. The royal couple visited New Zealand in October 2018 during their first overseas tour as a married couple. Residents of the Dutch city of Utrecht laid floral tributes for victims of the tram shooting. A day after a gunman opened fire on a tram on the outskirts of the Dutch city, public transport was back to normal. A 37-year-old Turkish-born man, Gökmen Tanis, was arrested after a 7-hour manhunt on Monday. Police are investigating whether the suspect was acting on political beliefs or personal vendetta. The European Union's chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier has said that a Brexit extension would only make sense if it increases the chances of a deal being ratified by British Parliament. Nearly 3 years after Britain voted to leave the EU, its departure is uncertain, and European capitals are pressing British Prime Minister Theresa May to spell out her next moves after her plan to hold another vote this week on her twice-defeated divorce deal, which was thrown into disarray by a surprise intervention from the Speaker of Parliament. Several French trade unions staged nationwide strikes in opposition to President Emmanuel Macron's economic policies. Demonstrators are demanding better pay, improved purchasing power, retirement protection, gender equality and a more robust education system. Some of the demonstrators wore yellow vests in solidarity with the Yellow Vest movement that has shaken Macron's presidency and encompasses similar demands. Over 2,000 students, doctors, dentists and veterinarians marched in the Algerian capital to demand that President Abdelaziz Bouteflika step down. Protesters wearing white coats and stethoscopes marched from the central Algiers hospital, calling for the government to respect the constitution and enact a peaceful and democratic transition. Demonstrators have mounted pressure on Bouteflika, demanding he quit at the end of his April mandate. Thousands of coca farmers participated on a mass coca leaf chew to protest against eradication efforts by the government of President Evo Morales. The United States has been working with Bolivian authorities to eradicate illegal coca plants found to exceed the 22,000 limit for growers. There are over 80,000 legal coca farmers in Bolivia. The United Nations Office on Drug and Crime lists Bolivia as the world's third largest producer of coca and cocaine, behind Colombia and Peru. At least 10 migrants died when their boat sank off the Libyan coast near the western town. According to sources, the boat was carrying about 27 illegal migrants. The United Nations Migration Agency, IOM, has said that 15 survivors had been brought to a hospital, but it did not know how many people had been on board. Libya's western coast is a main departure point for migrants fleeing poverty and wars to reach Europe, though numbers have dropped since Italy and the European Union stepped up efforts to support the Libyan Coast Guard. US President Donald Trump has said he plans to designate Brazil as a major non-NATO ally or maybe a NATO ally. Speaking at a joint White House news conference with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, Trump said, and I quote, "As I told President Bolsonaro, I also intend to designate Brazil as a major non-NATO ally or maybe a NATO ally. I'll have to talk to a lot of people, but maybe a NATO ally which will greatly advance security and cooperation between our countries." Aid and rescue workers carry bread and other food supplies over a damaged bridge in Zimbabwe. This after cyclone winds and floods swept across southeastern Africa, affecting more than 2.6 million people. Rescue crews are still struggling to reach victims 5 days after Cyclone Idai raced in at speeds of up to 170 kilometers per hour from the Indian Ocean into Mozambique and finally its inland neighbors Zimbabwe and Malawi. Heavy rains have brought historically high flooding to several Midwestern states and have led to thousands of evacuations. 3 people have died, including a man who officials say was trying to rescue strangers from freezing floodwaters. Record-breaking flooding in at least 5 states has led to emergency declarations. Several communities have been cut off from outside help. The National Weather Service has said that the flooding would continue across parts of the Central Plains and Upper Midwest for the rest of the week. Britain's Queen Elizabeth and Kate, Duchess of Cambridge, opened a research centre at King's College University in London and encountered robots, including a robotic arm. The pair opened Bush House, a newly converted suite of lecture theatres and teaching rooms at the university. The Queen met students from the Robotics Research and Entrepreneurs Hip Institute and even encountered a robotic arm.
Thank you.